Hi, I'm Dan Jones and I'm an author and a hypnotherapist and hypnotherapy trainer in the UK. I have been practicing for around 20 years now, or just over, and one of the biggest issues that people present to me is stress. There's a whole range of other issues sometimes that they come presenting, but when it comes down to it, normally stress is somewhere at the heart of what's maintaining the problem or making the problem worse than it otherwise would be. So this course here is to look at how self-hypnosis can be used to help you to be able to manage stress in your life. Whether that's work-based stress or whether that's stress of certain situations out of work, it's just having a broader overview at how you handle stress yourself and what some of the things are that can lead to that stress. So this course is for people that would like just a simple technique or a simple way of being able to leave this course able to handle stress, handle stressful situations in a much more productive way, and able to reduce stress before you've even got into those situations. So being able to make it so that when you go into those situations you'll naturally be calmer in the first place, rather than getting into the situations and then having to calm yourself down. So what you will learn here is some information about stress, a technique that you can use to manage stress, So is this program for you? So what I wanted to do was just give you a very brief experience of self-hypnosis. So I'm just going to guide you through a very brief self-hypnosis experience just for a couple of minutes. So if you want to listen to this and follow along to it properly, make sure that you're in a quiet environment, or at least an environment where you won't be disturbed, and it doesn't matter if you close your eyes for a couple of minutes and go inside your mind for a couple of minutes and just really relax. And make sure that your attention isn't required elsewhere for anything else at all. And if you've got a mobile phone or any kind of electrical equipment that you can turn off, make sure you've got that turned off just in case of interference. And in the case of a mobile phone, you don't really want that going off when you're trying to relax. So just putting it on silent isn't good enough because it might vibrate. So just make sure it's totally off just for the next couple of minutes. And then if you're ready to follow along to this, just take a moment to close your eyes. And with your eyes closed, you can hear me speaking. And as you hear me speaking, you can begin to be aware of the feelings around your head and your face. Perhaps the feeling of the air on your face. You know, we don't often spend much time noticing feelings on our skin, like the air. We don't spend much time noticing things like movement of the eyes as they relax closed. And so as you listen to me and drift inside, just have a sense of walking through a meadow, walking through a beautiful country meadow. And as you walk through that meadow, just notice what sights and sounds there are in that meadow. What sort of colours there are of the different plants, whether you can see any animals, whether there are any clouds in the sky. And with each step you take in that meadow, you can notice how you go deeper and deeper, more comfortably, deeper and more relaxed as you walk through that meadow. And as you allow yourself to be more absorbed in the experience, your unconscious can begin to respond in a comfortable way, helping you relax as you walk through the meadow. And I don't know whether you feel the warmth of the sun on your skin, or notice movement of hair on your head. Or whether you feel each footstep that you take. And as you just take a few more moments to walk and relax, I'll go quiet just for a minute or so. And as I do, you can go deeper and more relaxed with each out-breath, because each out-breath just helps you relax deeply and comfortably. That's it. And then in just a moment, as you continue walking around that meadow, you'll begin to feel a sense of drifting back to the here and now. And you can keep hold of some calmness, some relaxation, but you can just feel a sense of drifting back to the here and now, and after a couple of moments, perhaps a few breaths, whilst remaining calm and relaxed, you can come back to the room and just open your eyes comfortably. So that was a brief example of a self-hypnosis induction, just kept very, very brief, just to give you a taste of what self-hypnosis will be like on this course. So what is self-hypnosis? Self-hypnosis is the process of being able to hypnotise yourself. So you can go to a hypnotist, and what they will do is they will have you sit in a seat somewhere, or perhaps lying down on a couch. They'll sit in a seat somewhere and they will guide you through a process, normally a gentle process, where they're talking to you in a very gentle, kind of way. And they'll guide you into a relaxed state of mind where you're focused just on what it is that they're saying. So when you start that process, you're perhaps aware of the sounds outside. You might be aware of different parts of your own body, perhaps how you're sitting, how you're lying, what your feet are resting on. You might have certain thoughts in your mind that are distracting you or interrupting what you'd like to be focusing on. You might be hearing things from outside the room. Say it was in an office where there's other people milling around outside the door, so you might be able to hear that. But gradually, as the hypnotist speaks, your attention begins to narrow more onto what the hypnotist is presenting to you and what they're expecting you to follow along to. So if they're doing an induction, for example, saying imagine yourself walking down a staircase, at the beginning you might be hearing the hypnotist at the same time as thinking I'm a little bit uncomfortable and shifting in your seat a bit, and at the same time as being aware of the sounds outside. And perhaps if there's sunlight shining in, maybe you're aware of how even though your eyes are shut, aware of how the light changes as clouds come over the sun and all these sort of things. But then it might get to say the counting from 10 down to 1, doing the staircase induction, they might get to say 5, and you might then be focused more on what the hypnotist is saying and less on other aspects of your reality. And the hypnotist will be using certain skills to do that, to be able to narrow that attention. So what you'll be doing here is having guided self-hypnosis. You can either do self-hypnosis to yourself where you hypnotize yourself. So you could hypnotize yourself by focusing on your breathing, you could hypnotize yourself by focusing on one spot and just keeping your attention there, and if it wanders, bring it straight back to that point, or by doing a guided self-hypnosis induction to yourself, like closing your eyes and imagining yourself walking down a staircase or whatever it happens to be. So you can do it to yourself, but here I'll be giving you an induction and giving you a process that you can actually follow, which is a much easier way of doing it. So why use self-hypnosis? Well, the reason to use self-hypnosis is that it's very difficult to use conscious willpower alone. So we have a conscious mind and we have an unconscious part of our mind. Really, they're not two separate things. The conscious mind is just what we're aware of consciously here, right now. The unconscious mind is really everything else. So the unconscious and the conscious, it's a fuzzy line between them, because memories that are currently unconscious tomorrow could become conscious. So if I bumped into an old friend from school and started talking to them, suddenly I could be reminded of a memory from my school days that I haven't thought about for years and years and years. That memory was an unconscious memory, but in that moment it's suddenly a conscious memory. So the divide between conscious and unconscious is a bit fuzzy. But when I'm referring to conscious and unconscious, what I'm talking about is that part of you that's aware right now versus everything else that's ticking away somewhere in the back of your mind. It's ticking away through your body, it's controlling all the cells in your body, it's keeping everything dividing, all the cells dividing and multiplying, it's keeping blood flowing around your body, it's making sure you're breathing. So the unconscious part of you is not just dealing with there's a storehouse of memories and things like that, it's also dealing with making sure that you stay alive. So the unconscious part is thought to be vastly more powerful and influential than the conscious part. Another bit of research to back that up is that we respond unconsciously to threats or to any big stimulus. So predominantly threats, but to threats or any high level of emotion. We respond unconsciously first and then we get a conscious reaction afterwards. So if you have a fear of snakes and you see a stick or a twig on the ground and it's low light and so you can't quite make out that it's a twig, you're likely to start noticing your heart begin to race. You're likely to respond as if it could be a snake, because the pattern in your unconscious mind is snakes are dangerous, I've got to panic and run away. And then you consciously become aware of the fact you're panicking and feeling nervous and you think, oh, I see a snake, and then now your attention is drawn to it. If you haven't ran away already, you can consciously start analysing it and thinking, right, let's have a look. Is that a snake? Oh no, it's a stick. So the conscious and the unconscious work together, but there's a lot of things that happen on the unconscious level first. And the unconscious is also where all our patterns are formed. So consciously, it's a bit like the conscious mind is the driver of a bus. The unconscious mind is all the passengers, and it's the road you're driving on. It's the whole map. It's everything else. So the conscious mind, the driver can drive around, they can see the bit of road that they're on, they can see the few buildings or the streets or the people around them. They can see a small area, they can't see huge amounts. Whereas the unconscious mind is like having GPS sat-nav looking down, you can see everything there is to see, and you're aware of what all the passengers are saying in the back seats. You're aware of so much more. So because the unconscious is where patterns are processed and updated, so for example, using the snake example again, if you didn't have a fear of snakes, like I don't have a fear of snakes, but there's nothing stopping me from developing one. So if you didn't have a fear of snakes and then suddenly one day a snake lunges at you, say I went to Australia and I'm enjoying a trip out into the outback and suddenly a snake lunges at me and I survive, but now I'm thinking snakes are dangerous. It's a hugely emotional, shocking experience. Now I've suddenly developed this fear of snakes. That could happen, and I would then have that pattern for snakes updated in my brain. So it's a bit like adding something extra to a document on a computer and then pressing save. Suddenly that pattern is updated. So where snakes used to be safe for me and used to be something that I'm aware some are dangerous and I'm aware some aren't dangerous, and I'm aware that you need to be safe and sensible around the dangerous ones, suddenly I'm trying to be overly safe around even the safe ones, and I'm trying to keep away from them. So that happens unconsciously. You don't consciously have, say, a snake attacking you and then think, I wonder what I should do with that bit of information. I wonder whether I should make myself a little bit more scared, or whether I should just take it as a one-off incident that's happened, but it'll be perfectly fine. It's not likely to happen again. People don't generally rationally think things through like that. You just develop that fear or phobia or whatever you want to call it. You just develop it and then you've got it from that point on. And that happens in your unconscious mind. It doesn't happen in your conscious part of your mind. So where self-hypnosis helps is that self-hypnosis is about finding a way, so hypnosis is finding a way of accessing that unconscious pattern matching part of the mind and re-updating the patterns with something a bit more helpful than what you've currently got. So self-hypnosis is doing that for yourself. So with the snake example, it could be that I would go inside my mind and update the pattern to say, look, that was a one-off incident. I had never been to Australia before, I may never go to Australia again. The chances of running into that same snake are very, very slim. I don't have to be scared of all the snakes that there are in the world just because of one incident. And so I'd update the pattern and then come back out of hypnosis, and suddenly I would be perfectly fine around snakes, being able to carry on my life like normal without the trauma. So when it comes to dealing with stress, it's the same thing. That it's about using self-hypnosis to go inside the mind to say, right, this is what's causing the stress. This is how we need to update those patterns. And that's what we'll be doing here on this course. So how often should you listen to the self-hypnosis track and use the self-hypnosis? Really, the best answer for how often you should listen to a self-hypnosis track is that you should listen to it as often as you need to until you start seeing all the results that you want to be getting. So that point where the results start happening automatically. And then just keep listening to it a bit longer, and then the results should remain automatic. So it's a bit like advertising. With advertising, you need a lot of repetition to make the advert stick in a consumer's mind. You don't just show an advert once and expect that advert to suddenly magically be there and stuck in that mind of that person. And that's the same with hypnosis. That hypnosis isn't a magic bullet in any way. It's not some kind of magic pill. You have to use it over and over again to make sure that the mind understands what it's supposed to do and then takes what it's supposed to take from the track. So some people will get results really quickly, some people will get results straight away, but other people might need to use it over and over again every day for a number of weeks just to make sure that they're embedding this new pattern in their mind. There are a lot of things that can stop self-hypnosis being as effective as you would like it to be. For example, if the track goes too fast for you or goes too slow for you, or if there are things you don't quite follow during the track, then you have to perhaps listen to it again so that you can follow those things in the next run through. Or if it asks you to, so in some of my tracks that I make, I ask people to think of certain things or certain past events. If when you first get asked that on the track, you think, I don't know, I can't think of anything that matches that, and you're saying that kind of thought to yourself in your mind, and then the track carries on, because the trouble with making self-hypnosis tracks is that I can't tailor it to one individual. I have to make it generic, and that means that the person who's sat there listening and thinking, oh, I don't know, I can't remember a time when I've been confident, let me think. And they're doing that, and I'm already moving on to, that's it. And so with that confident memory, what I want you to do is, and I'm moving on, and the person's sitting there thinking, I haven't even got the confident memory yet, and you're already racing off to this next bit. So that person would be able to think, right, the second time I listen to this, I know that at that point he asks me for a confident memory. So what I'm going to do is, before I do the hypnosis, I'm going to think of a confident memory, so that when I reach that point where I get asked for a confident memory, I can just give it because I know it. So again, that means that person has to then re-listen to it. Someone else, I'll say, and you just let a confident memory come to mind, and they'll think, yep, one's appeared. And they'll be able to keep moving at the speed that I'm going. Obviously, normally I try and leave a bit of a gap and try and judge it and think, how long will the average listener need, where I've got a gap but I'm not hopefully annoying the people who found the answer straight away by keeping them waiting, and hopefully there's not too many people who I'm annoying because I'm going ahead before they're ready. So to know how often to use this will be a personal preference. As I say, hypnosis isn't a magic pill. And because hypnosis isn't a magic pill, it's not like you can just use it once and be done with it and not do anything different in your life. Hypnosis comes as part of a package, so there will always be certain tasks, certain behaviours that you'll be expected to do outside of the hypnosis. So with this Hypnosis to Reduce Stress course, there'll be the hypnosis, and the idea is the hypnosis makes what you choose to do easier than if you hadn't used hypnosis. But there will also be things that you'll be doing in your everyday life. And the idea is the hypnosis helps you to be able to do that better. It's not that the hypnosis is the magic cure-all medicine. How do you measure the success of using this self-hypnosis program? Well, one good way of measuring success is, at the beginning, use scaling. So for example, on a scale of 0 to 10, with 0 being, you know what, in the situations in my life I feel totally calm and comfortable, and 10 being, in the situations that I get stressed about, is like the worst stress it could ever be. You can scale yourself and think, where am I now? So just listening to this, where am I now? And you might say I'm about a 7. Sometimes in situations I'm worse, but generally thinking about it now, I would say I'm a 7. And then what you do is, as you listen to this, go through the program and use the program, you then rescale. So perhaps scaling once a day, or whatever you choose to do, you rescale it and think, how am I feeling now? Scale of 0 to 10, in these situations that caused me to feel stress, how do I feel about them now? And the idea is that hopefully you'll be moving down the scale. So you might only say I'm a 6 the first time, but hopefully by the end you'll be saying you're perhaps a 1 or a 2 or a 3, somewhere right down the other end of the scale, where there's no harm in having a bit of stress. Stress is a very good motivator, helps people to get things done, but what you don't want is that high level of stress that can make it so that your brain shuts down. So that's the best way to measure success, is to use scaling, something that you're able to say, there's a number on it, and so as long as that number changes and in the right direction, I know I'm making progress. And what you can do is, my question to clients is, okay, so you've said a 7, what is a 7? What does a 7 look like? How do I know you're a 7? If I was following you around with a video camera, how would I know you're a 7? And what you want is the person to be saying, well, you'll know that I'm a 7 because you'll see the tension in my shoulders, you'll see that I'm breathing quickly, or whatever it is for them. They can give that description to it, and then I would often ask, so what stops it being an 8? What would have to be slightly worse than that, so that if I asked you that question again, you would say it was an 8? And then they would tell me what the slight negative changes would be that would make it so that if I'd ask them again, it would be an 8. And I was like, so what would make it a 6? And then again, they'll tell me, if this bit improved, if that bit improved, that would be a 6. So the reason to do that, and the reason it's good for you to do that for yourself, is because if you do that, not only do you have a number, but you also have a description in real world sensory terms, a description of what that number represents, so that you can then think, right, so I've said that if it was a 6, my shoulders would be a bit more relaxed. So when you then do the scaling, you can think, oh, actually this time, today, my shoulders were a bit more relaxed. That means actually I must have been more of a 6 than a 7. Even though I felt like a 7, actually I must have been a 6 because my shoulders were more relaxed than they were yesterday or the day before. So using scaling is a very good way of measuring success and measuring your progress and knowing how much you need to listen to it. So if you listen to it for a week and you've gone from a 7 down to a, say, 5, you can think, well, if I listen to it for another week or two, maybe I'll be down to a 4 or a 3. And if I listen to it for a couple more weeks after that, maybe I'll then get down to a 2 or a 1. So you can measure and see progress, and that really helps to keep up that motivation to keep doing any techniques. So, preparing to use self-hypnosis. Now, using self-hypnosis, you need to make sure that there are certain conditions, ideally. Now, you can use self-hypnosis just walking around normally, but it definitely isn't advisable. You wouldn't want to be using self-hypnosis if you're driving a car, or if you're operating some kind of machinery that takes some hard work, or doing anything where actually your attention should be on what you're doing. So the first bit of preparation is ideally make sure that you have an environment where you can relax, where you're not going to be disturbed, where you've got your mobile phone turned off. It's best really just not to have a mobile phone on, to ideally have it in another room. If you're listening to a self-hypnosis track electronically, so perhaps this video later on in the course, or an audio track, a mobile phone or anything like that that's in the room may well interfere with the signal, and the last thing you want is to be listening to something, say you had headphones in, to be listening to something, then suddenly you get the and that horrible noise you get, you know, the one that mobile phones make when they're too near to headphones. That's the last thing you want. So make sure that anything like your mobile phone, anything like that, is outside of the room, turned off ideally. So if you can't turn it off, just make sure it's a long way away from you. And make sure that you've got an area that can be quiet, an area you know you won't be disturbed for a period of time, say half an hour or so it gives you time to listen to the self-hypnosis and come around afterwards. Don't go driving straight away afterwards or anything like that. Make sure you've got time to come around fully, because some people can be a bit sort of sleepy and can feel like they're not fully with it yet, and they just need a few moments to stand up, walk around and stretch their legs a bit before they're ready to drive or anything. So don't listen to it if you have to suddenly dash off somewhere straight afterwards, and don't listen to it if someone's likely to come around or come home and be disturbing you. So the timing is quite important, just to make sure that you're ready, that you can devote that time. The more you can set your scene around prioritising that self-hypnosis and saying, right, that time, that is what I'm doing, the better. So if there is a chance that people could turn up, or if there is a chance that you could be disturbed in some way, you may not be able to relax so easily, and you may end up being disturbed. So other than that, preparation wise, it doesn't matter really whether you sit or lie down, but part of it will be your own learning. So for example, if you lie down and listen to this, and you end up falling asleep, it won't work because you fell asleep. So as soon as you properly fall asleep, it's a bit like cutting all ties with the sound of my voice. So if you properly fall asleep, then it's not going to work for you, because you're not going to be responding to what it is that I'm saying. Now, not remembering it isn't the same as falling asleep. So if you open your eyes and come around at the time you're supposed to in relation to what I say on the self-hypnosis video, then you weren't asleep. Some people think they're asleep because they don't remember anything, but you're not asleep if you come around when you're supposed to come around. You are asleep if you come around 2 hours later or something, and actually you needed to be coming around after half an hour if you were coming around and being awake. So that's a personal learning. So if you end up falling asleep, then next time you listen to it, perhaps try listening to it sitting in a chair instead of lying down. Or try listening to it, say, mid-morning or at a time when you know you're more awake than at the end of the day, just before bed or something like that. So sleep self-hypnosis tracks are quite good to listen to just before bed, but many other tracks, it's best to listen to it much earlier rather than at a time when you might actually fall asleep. Now we're moving on to the actual self-hypnosis. Now, for this bit, what I want you to do is make sure that you can sit comfortably or lie down. Make sure that you're not going to be disturbed. Make sure your mobile phone is off. Make sure that you can just take the next half an hour or so to be able to relax fully. Because sometimes when you come round from hypnosis, you just want to remain relaxed for a little bit. You don't want to instantly jump up and have to rush around. So make sure that this is at a time when you're not going to have to rush off and do anything else straight away afterwards. When you can really just take some time for yourself. So now sit down or lie down comfortably and just allow your eyes to close. And with your eyes closed, you can listen to me, and as you listen to me, you can begin to relax. You don't have to yet know how you're going to begin to relax, because that relaxation will happen all by itself as you continue to follow along to this process. And so you can listen to me. And you can breathe in and you can breathe out. And I don't know whether you will drift deeper and more comfortably into self-hypnosis with the in-breaths or the out-breaths, but as you continue to breathe comfortably in and comfortably out, you can relax in your own way, because everyone has their own unique way of drifting and relaxing, and you can find your own unique way of drifting and relaxing inside. And as you relax, you can relax through the body as well as through the mind. And we'll start with the relaxing of your body. So to relax your body, just take a few moments to focus on the top of your head. And as you focus on the top of your head, notice what it feels like. Notice any sensations there. It could be the feeling of hair on your head. It could be the feeling of the air on your head. And just allow your awareness to drift down to your ears and around the sides of your face. Allow your awareness to drift down to the front of your face, and as you relax there with your eyes closed, perhaps you can notice movement under the eyelids of the eyeballs, or perhaps they seem very still. And as you continue listening and relaxing, your attention can begin to drift down to your neck, down to your shoulders, and just almost like having a relaxing massage, just allowing relaxation to pass through those shoulders. And it can almost be like there's a comforting light that follows, passing from the top of your head, that begins to fill up the areas as they relax, passing that relaxation down from the shoulders, down to both arms, all the way down to your hands. And as that relaxation spreads down to the shoulders and all the way down to the hands, I don't know whether it'll spread quicker down one side or the other. And as that relaxation spreads, I don't know how fast it will go, whether it'll go faster down one side or the other, or whether it'll go at the same speed. And once that relaxation reaches the fingertips, you can notice how it can begin to move down the back, and down your chest, all the way down through your body, relaxing down to your legs. And then as the relaxation begins to reach the legs, I don't know whether those arms will feel heavy or light, or whether you'll notice certain tingling or certain sensations in those arms. But that's okay, as that relaxation continues. And it can continue down through your legs, down to your feet, so comfortably all the way down to your feet. And then as the relaxation reaches your feet, you can begin to get an awareness of standing on a path for a beautiful place. And I don't know what your beautiful place looks like. And you may not yet know what your beautiful place looks like. But you can have a sense of a beautiful place forming in your mind. And as you stand on that path, listening to me, your unconscious can begin to help you go deeper and more relaxed. And any time you want to relax deeply, you can listen to this track. And this track will teach you certain things as well as helping you to relax. And everything here can become automatic, because you can do this easily and effortlessly. You don't even have to try, you just listen along. And as you listen along and relax, you can begin to walk along that path through that beautiful place. And as you walk along that path through the beautiful place, I wonder what your footsteps sound like. And you can take a moment to just have an awareness of the ground, of what the ground is like. What's it made of? What kind of ground are you walking along? And what's the sound of each footstep that you make? And as you comfortably walk along the footpath, you're unconscious. Can continue to listen to me and relax. And as you gaze around you, I wonder what you'll notice. You can take some time to have a look around you as you walk along and see what you'd see in this beautiful place. Hear what you'd hear. And I wonder what you'll notice as you walk through this beautiful place. What sounds can you hear here? What does it feel like to be walking here? And as you walk through this beautiful place, in a moment you can take some time to sit down and close your eyes. That's it. And with your eyes closed, you can begin to imagine yourself in a beautiful log cabin with a TV on the wall, and you can gaze over at that TV. And as you look at that TV, you can begin to see yourself on that TV. You can see yourself on that TV in situations that used to make you stressed in the past. And you can see that you over there on the TV, calmly and relaxed, handling those stressful situations that used to make you feel stressed in the past. And you can turn up the volume to the internal dialogue of that you on the TV. And you can hear what that you on the TV says to themselves that helps them relax and keep calm in that situation. And you can notice what that you says differently to themselves to how the old you used to say things. Yes. And you can notice what body language that you has that lets you know that that you is handling situations much better than the old you used to. And you can think about those things that used to cause you stress. And you can notice how that you handles those things in a way that's different. You can notice what's different that makes that you be able to handle those situations calmly and comfortably. It could be waking up in a calm and comfortable way. It could be thinking about the day in a calm and comfortable way. Whatever it is, you can notice what's different. And a part of you is learning and updating your neurology with this new way of being, with this new pattern. And that's it, you can really notice that. then in a moment you can take some time to imagine yourself drifting into that TV screen, into the you in that TV screen, and imagine going through those situations that you just went through, feeling what it feels like to be that calm you, to be that relaxed you. And I wonder what that you did to maintain being calm and relaxed. You know, some people get stressed by feeling overwhelmed with the amount of work they have to do. But there are ways of thinking about it that can reduce stress. And you can always listen to this as a way of reducing stress. And you always have this hut as somewhere to go back to. And you can come back to this hut by listening to this. And you can listen to this regularly. Or you can come back to the hut just by closing your eyes and having a sense of walking along a path through the beautiful place. Until you find a space to sit down and close your eyes and relax. And then you'll find yourself in the hut. And after a few moments of silence, you can find your way back out of the hut, back onto that path, back off that path all the way to wakeful awareness. And you can do that in a moment when I start talking again. But for now, just enjoy a few moments of silence. That's it. And so now you can take a few moments to come out of the TV screen, back to that seat. And then out of there and back out the hut, opening your eyes, finding yourself sat on that path, standing up, and then walking back along the path. And then making sure that everything's ingrained for you to learn effectively how to handle stress well, how to be able to reduce stress using this self-hypnosis. When you know that can happen, you can drift all the way back to wakeful awareness and open your eyes. Previous session we covered the self-hypnosis track. In this session we're going to look at what else you can do to help to reduce stress. So as I said earlier on, self-hypnosis is only a part of the process. Self-hypnosis is like the cement that helps to stick everything in place and helps things to be more effective, quicker and easier than when you try and do all these things without the self-hypnosis. So one thing that I'm going to teach you is 7-11 breathing. Now 7-11 breathing is a breathing technique where you breathe out longer than you breathe in. So your out breath is longer than your in breath. And by making your out breath longer than your in breath, it triggers the relaxation response. So normally our breathing's fairly even. We breathe in, we breathe out, we breathe in, we breathe out, and we do it evenly. And that keeps us almost in a neutral state. We're not particularly stressed and we're not particularly relaxed. Often when we get stressed, we start breathing in more than we breathe out. And when you get relaxed, you start breathing out more than you breathe in. That's why smokers find smoking relaxing, even though cigarettes, nicotine is a stimulant. And so as a stimulant, nicotine actually makes your heart race faster, makes your breathing change to a more stress type feeling. But despite that, smokers often say, I smoke because it relaxes me. And it's because of the breathing they do. Smokers will go and they take long breaths, and they definitely blow out often longer than they breathe in. So because smokers breathe in a way that triggers the relaxation response, that means that for a period of time they feel more relaxed, but then as that relaxation effect starts to fade, where you've created that relaxation from the breathing, at the same time the nicotine is kicking in, which means that eventually comes a point where the nicotine overtakes the relaxation and you start feeling stressed and anxious again, and then need another cigarette. So the 7-11 breathing, what you do is breathe from right down your stomach, so you fill your whole lungs. You breathe in counting to 7, and then you breathe out counting to 11. If 7-11 is two big numbers and you need smaller breathing numbers, then 3-5 is equally as good. It's just having something to count to that lets you know that you're breathing out longer than breathing in. So you go. So in my head I was counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. It's okay. And you don't have to make it as overt and obvious as I'm doing it here, but it's about having that breathing so that your out breath is longer than your in breath. The good thing about that technique is it's one that can be done totally privately and covertly. No one has to know you're doing it. You can do it in any kind of public situation, do it anywhere at all, and look like you're just breathing normally, so nobody knows you're doing a technique to keep yourself calm. So me doing it normally, so that was me doing one round of breathing in to 7, out to 11, doing it normally, as I would if I was in a situation that could cause me stress. So you can do the technique normally without it being visibly obvious to anyone else. Now just doing it once isn't going to have a huge impact, but what you want is to do perhaps 3, 4, 5 of those breaths back to back, maybe even longer. If you're genuinely in a stressful situation, it's quite often worth doing the same technique. Say you were going to give public speaking or something, and you're finding this stressful situation. Doing that technique is a very good way in the run-up to taking the stand and doing whatever public speaking you're doing. It's a very good way of just beginning to trigger the relaxation response. Other things that are useful in that kind of situation are when you sit down, that will help you relax more. So if you've got a situation where you can choose to either stand up or sit down, so if you're public speaking and you've got that option, then pulling up a chair and sitting down will instantly make you feel more relaxed and more at ease and more comfortable, rather than standing there feeling exposed. Likewise, if you've got something you can stand behind, like a podium or something, standing behind it when you start talking, even if you don't need to, so even if you've got a lapel mic and so it's not attached to the podium or anything, having something between you and the audience, something you can just rest on for a minute, helps you to relax into what you're doing before you then step out from behind there and present without having the podium between you and the audience. So I often use the sitting down technique, and I often use the breathing technique in situations where I want to relax comfortably because I'm getting stressed. So they're good techniques to do at the time when you're facing a stressful situation. The self-hypnosis track is very good for mental rehearsal and for setting yourself up for the future. So a lot of people worry and they go over stuff in their mind that makes them really anxious, and then when the situation happens, they've already got their mind clouded with how they think it could go bad, even though it may go really well. It could go bad, but it's better to go into it assuming it's all going to go well, even if it goes bad, than go into it thinking it's going to go bad, even though it might all go well. So making sure that any situation you have to go into, if you can rehearse beforehand or practice beforehand, do so that you have more confidence or comfortableness in what you're doing. Another technique I just wanted to share with you is imagining creating a circle on the ground. So imagine a circle in front of you on the ground, and imagine that there's a confident, comfortable, relaxed version of yourself in that circle. And then just have a sense of stepping into that you in the circle, taking on board what that you is like. So you have a circle on the floor and you imagine stepping into that circle, closing your eyes a minute, taking on board what it's like to be in that you in that circle. And then as you walk out of that circle, you take that you with you, almost like taking the circle with you. So that you, the real you, and the you that was in the circle are one, and you walk off as that, keeping a sense of holding on to that almost in your mind. So that's a really good technique as well for being able to enter a situation. So I worked with somebody, an actor, who said that they often got nervous before going out on stage. And so what we did was had it that in the doorway to where they were performing, there was a circle on the floor that had them waiting there all the time. A calm, relaxed version of them that was focused, waiting there all the time. And then what they would do is they would walk into the building, and as they walk through that door, they would have a sense of knowing that's on the floor there waiting for them, that circle, with that being, that them there. They would walk into them, and then they would walk on, and they would take that with them, and then they would do the performance really well, and they'd remain calm and relaxed while they do it. So it's a really good technique for that kind of thing. I've had people that do public speaking do the same, that they'll imagine the circle being on the route up to where they've got to stand and do the presentation, and then they'll walk through that circle and up there, and they can rehearse that as many times as they want, walking through the circle before they get to the real situation. And so those techniques are really good techniques for helping to reduce the stress and to manage that stress when it's actually kicking in, when the actual stressful event's kicking in. But mental rehearsal, so closing your eyes and imagining how things will go, a bit like we did with the self-hypnosis, just being able to do that, so taking a few moments to close your eyes and imagine that situation playing out in your mind, but instead of doing the worrying version, which is what I find many people naturally do, you do the healing version, which is, instead of imagining the worst it could go, you close your eyes and you imagine yourself doing it perfectly. So there was research done with some basketball players in the US. They didn't know how to play basketball, these people, but it was done having them playing basketball, so they're basketball players. They took a group of people and said, here's a basketball, what I want to do is spend a week practicing throwing that in, to the hoop, and at the end of the week we'll see how well you do. Took another group of people, said, what we want you to do is, here's a basketball, hold it, get used to the weight of it, just so you know what it feels like to have the basketball. And here is how you should throw it into the net. So both of the groups were told, here's how to throw it to get it into the net successfully, here's how you should hold it, here's how you should line up, here's how you should take the shot. Then they said to one group, you practice for real for a week, the other group, you practice just in your mind. So close your eyes and mentally rehearse yourself throwing that ball into the net correctly over and over again. The group that was most successful a week later was the group that practiced in their mind, because they only practiced doing the shots correctly. So they practiced hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of shots, picking the ball up, throwing it, holding it correctly, throwing it correctly, getting it in the net. The other group practiced for real. So not only were they practicing getting it correct, they also made lots of mistakes. And their bodies remembered the mistakes as well as the correct ones that went in. So mental rehearsal is a really powerful tool. So if you know something, a situation, whether it's I wake up in the morning and I think, oh God, I'm already stressed at the thought of having to journey to work. Mentally rehearse waking up in the morning and how you would prefer it to be. So it's a solution-focused technique. So wake up in the morning, so you might think, right, what would I prefer instead of that stress? I'd prefer to wake up, smile, seeing my wife lying next to me, smile and say, would you like a cup of tea or whatever it is, and then I'll get myself dressed and I won't be feeling anxious at all. I'll just get myself dressed and I'll go and make a cup of tea, and then I'll bring my wife a cup of tea in bed, and then I'll get myself sorted for work, and then I'll head off to work. I'll enjoy the journey, enjoy the view out the window, enjoy listening to music, whatever it is. You just come up with the positive version of how you prefer to be feeling and how you prefer to think about things throughout that journey. And then you mentally rehearse that over and over and over and over again. Any minute you've got, any time you've got, just sitting down at home for 5 minutes, sit down at home, close your eyes, and just imagine waking up in the morning, going through that other alternative routine. So using mental rehearsal is the final one. Okay, so what have you learnt from this course? Well, I've covered what self-hypnosis is, how to use self-hypnosis. I've covered a self-hypnosis process that just helps you to begin to manage stress, helps your mind to begin to think about stress in a new way and handle stress in a new way. And you've also got that as an audio track so that you can use it regularly, perhaps daily, maybe even more frequent than that, and at any point that you need it, just to relax. What I find with hypnosis is that if a client comes in and they're really, really stressed, then I will often use hypnosis straight away, because after hypnosis they'll just be, oh yeah, I'll talk about anything now. And they'll be really relaxed and calm, and they'll be talking in a completely different way. Whereas if I try and gather information about the problem and gather information about what they need help with, and they're in that highly stressed state of mind, I don't get anything out of them. And so by the time I come to do the hypnosis later in the session, actually I haven't got much to go on. So it's better to do hypnosis straight away. They feel relaxed, and then they're in a much better place to be able to answer the questions. We've also covered a few techniques on how to actually manage stress when it strikes, and techniques that you can mentally rehearse. So mental rehearsal is one of the techniques, but the techniques you can mentally rehearse as well, and that you can think about when you use the self-hypnosis process. So you can use the self-hypnosis process, and every time you go into that cabin and you see that you on that TV screen, you can use some of the different techniques you've learned on that TV screen and see how that you does things differently because you're using those techniques, how things go differently. So you've learnt about 7-11 breathing, you've learnt about being able to create a circle on the ground that you can walk into and taking that you forward, and mental rehearsal.